Embiid's situation has just taken a frightening turn, with reports his health is getting worse ahead of Game 2 against the Knicks. Now, the Sixers star is officially out, and fans are fearing this is much bigger than just another injury setback. On May 6th, 2026, the news broke from ESPN's Shams Charania. 76er star Joel Embiid was ruled out for Game 2 against New York due to ankle and hip injuries. The Star Center was officially sidelined with a right ankle sprain and soreness in his right hip. The Sixers were already down 1-0 after a 137-98 demolition in Game 1. But what's concerning is how fast this all happened. The injury update changed in a flash. Embiid was first listed as probable with that ankle issue, before the team pulled him completely, citing both the sprain and the hip soreness. According to CBS Sports, Sixers coach Nick Nurse told reporters Embiid woke up with a bunch of soreness. ESPN also reported that he missed the team's morning shoot-around because the pain had gotten worse. Look, this isn't some random injury in a meaningless game. Embiid just got back from an emergency appendectomy and played the final 4 games to win their first-round series against Boston. In that series, he averaged 28 points and 9 rebounds. But in Game 1 against the Knicks, he put up just 14 points and 4 boards, shooting 3 for 11. So the real question now is whether any of this is sustainable. It's not just about whether Embiid can play through the pain in his ankle and hip, it's whether he can do it after a brutal first-round series while recovering from surgery and after a Game 1 performance where he looked like a shadow of himself. This moment, being ruled out for Game 2, is part of a much bigger story. A story about a body that's been failing one of the most gifted players on the planet, slowly, publicly, and more often for a decade. Embiid was limited to 38 games this season, and he's played in just 96 regular season games since his MVP year in 2023. Now, in his 8th trip to the postseason, Embiid has missed time in 6 of those playoff runs, and every single one has ended before the Eastern Conference Finals. To get how we got here, you have to go back to the beginning. Joel Embiid was born in Cameroon to a military officer, Thomas Embiid, and his wife, Christine. His early life looked nothing like a future NBA MVP's. Growing up, Embiid played a bunch of sports, and for a while, he actually wanted to be a professional volleyball player. But at 15 years old, he started playing basketball. He was already 6'9" and used that height for volleyball, until a coach gave him a tape of Hakeem Olajuwon and told him to take it home. That coach had no idea Embiid would watch it on a loop, constantly hitting rewind. He quit volleyball. That was it. That was the pivot point. A VHS tape of a legend handed to a kid who never saw basketball in his future. Embiid then went to a camp run by Luc Mbah a Moute, who was already an established player in the NBA. Just 2 months later, he was on a flight to Florida for high school in America. But when he got to Montverde Academy, it wasn't a smooth transition. The first time Embiid played on U.S. soil, his own teammates laughed at him. A pass hit him square in the stomach. He tripped over his own feet coming off a screen, and the ball bounced off his foot when he tried a simple dribble. The coach actually kicked him out of the gym on his very first day, but Embiid had something you just can't teach. At 6'9" with a massive wingspan and the footwork of a dancer, it was obvious to his coach, Kevin Boyle, that he had found a diamond in the rough. After moving from Montverde to the Rock School in Florida, Embiid committed to the University of Kansas. A year later, he was on campus. He didn't even know what March Madness was, had no idea who the top teams were. The only reason he picked Kansas was because Luke told him it was the best choice. In his 1 season there, he was so incredible he declared for the 2014 NBA draft. But even before he was drafted, the warning signs appeared. On June 20th, 2014, he had surgery on a broken bone in his right foot and was ruled out for 4 to 6 months. 6 days later, the Philadelphia 76ers drafted him with the 3rd overall pick. Then, tragedy struck. Embiid's younger brother, Arthur, died in a car crash back in Cameroon on October 16th, 2014. With Arthur gone, Joel lost his purpose and wanted to quit basketball to go home to his family. Years later, he would name his own son Arthur in his brother's memory. Embiid's first 2 NBA seasons were a total loss. He was ruled out for the entire 2014-15 season because of that broken bone. And after missing that whole year, it was announced he'd had a setback. A CT scan showed the bone wasn't healing like they'd hoped. 2 full years were gone before he ever even played in an NBA game. When he finally debuted in October 2016, he made his long-awaited debut against the Oklahoma City Thunder. He dropped 20 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 blocks in a loss. The talent was just overwhelming. It was blindingly obvious. But foot and knee injuries had already cost him 2 seasons before he was named to the NBA All-Rookie first team after playing in only 31 games. And that right there became the template. Sheer brilliance, interrupted by his body breaking down. The famous process was working, but the man at the center of the process was breaking. The list of injuries Joel Embiid has had reads less like a medical file and more like a textbook on everything that can go wrong with a 7-foot, 280-pound athlete playing basketball's most demanding position. Joel Embiid has suffered more than 100 injuries as of December 2025 in his NBA career, with his knee and foot issues being the most serious, some of them even ending his seasons. Embiid's career has been absolutely ravaged by injury. A bone bruise, a meniscus tear, a broken orbital bone, a sprained shoulder, tendinitis, torn ligaments, even Bell's palsy. In the 2017-18 playoffs, his very first postseason appearance, Embiid's playoff debut was pushed to Game 3 of the first round after he suffered an orbital fracture to his face, a concussion. It was a collision with his teammate Markelle Fultz that broke a bone in his face. And when he did return, he was wearing a protective mask. In 2021, 2022, it was more of the same story. Embiid goes off for 33 points, 10 boards, and 3 blocks to get the Sixers a win in Game 6. But then, the next day, the team announced a mild concussion and a right orbital fracture, putting him out indefinitely. He ended up missing the first 2 games of the Eastern Conference semifinals. Then came 2023, 2024, when the damage became existential. Embiid was having one of the most dominant scoring seasons in NBA history before Jonathan Kuminga of the Warriors accidentally fell onto his left leg on January 30th, 2024. Before that moment, Embiid was scoring more points than minutes played, something we hadn't seen since Wilt Chamberlain over 60 years ago. Embiid had a procedure on that left knee shortly after, and it's been a constant headache for him for the last calendar year. That left knee became the entire story. Embiid has had 2 surgeries on his left meniscus, both on the lateral side of it. The first was in 2017, the second in 2024. In both cases, doctors hoped that clipping the injured part of the meniscus would finally lead to long-term healing. But when 2 separate surgeries in the same spot fail to stick, doctors have to start looking for new answers. The 2024-2025 season was the absolute lowest point. On February 28th, the Sixers announced Embiid would miss the rest of the season because of ongoing problems with his left knee. In 19 total starts that year, he still averaged 23.8 points, 8.2 rebounds, and 4.5 assists. On April 11th, Embiid underwent arthroscopic surgery on his left knee. He even admitted that season that he didn't give himself enough time to recover from his surgery, and you can point a lot of the blame at his decision to play for Team USA in the Olympics. The Sixers publicly supported his quest for gold, but they had very little say in the decision. He won gold at the Paris 2024 Olympics, but the price his body paid was severe. Embiid turns 31, and with his age and his overall physical condition, many thought it was unrealistic to believe he could ever get back to his MVP form. And yet, when the 2025-2026 season began, the Sixers tried to make it work one more time. Embiid started that season on a minutes restriction, all to manage that left knee injury, limiting him to just 20 minutes a game and keeping him out of back-to-backs entirely. The Sixers were being even more cautious with Embiid, and he rarely, if ever, played on consecutive nights that season. But when he was on the court, he still delivered, averaging 26.9 points and 7.7 rebounds per game. Then, right before the playoffs, on April 9th, Embiid needed emergency surgery after a diagnosis of appendicitis, ending his regular season. The timing was just brutal. The Sixers were fighting for a playoff spot, and their franchise player was on an operating table in Houston. Against all expectations, Embiid returned, not in weeks, not in a month, in days. While Embiid missed the play-in game against the Five, here are Orlando Magic. In the first 3 games against the Celtics, he returned in Game 4, dropping 26 points and 10 rebounds. The Sixers were down 3-1. Nobody gave them a shot. But this was the start of an incredible run for the former MVP, putting up 2 nights of 30 points or more down the stretch, topped by a 34-point, 12-rebound, 6-assist clinic in Game 7 against Boston. Embiid became the first player in NBA history to score 100 points in a playoff series after missing the first 3 games. The Sixers made history, winning 3 straight games to take the series 4-3. The offensive trio of Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and VJ Edgecombe put up an incredible 87 points in Game 7, and with some solid defense, they secured a 109-100 victory. After the game, Embiid was seen limping up the court after grabbing a rebound, a truly worrying sight for every Philadelphia fan watching. But following the win, he gave a classic update to the press, saying, quote, "I feel great. I feel amazing. I was faking it." Let's be clear, he was not faking it. The excitement faded fast when the Sixers ran into the New York Knicks in the conference semis, getting absolutely blown out in Game 1. Fatigue from the last series, combined with poor defense and a jaw-dropping 35-point game from Jalen Brunson, led to a dismal 98-137 defeat. Embiid finished that Game 1 loss with just 14 points on 3 for 11 shooting, 4 boards, and 1 assist in 25 minutes right after posting back-to-back double-doubles to eliminate Boston. The superstar center just couldn't carry that momentum, and his shooting struggles from outside continued. He was hitting just 13.6% from deep in 5 postseason games. Then came the morning of Game 2, and everything fell apart. Embiid was initially listed as probable with a right ankle sprain, but then he missed the morning shoot-around because of hip pain. His coach said he woke up with a bunch of soreness. Hours later, he was ruled out of the game entirely. Without Embiid, an uphill battle turned into a sheer cliff face. Embiid's absence totally changes the Sixers' offensive equation. Without him, they lose their best post scorer, their most reliable free throw generator, and the guy who forces New York's defense to collapse into the paint. Without Embiid, the Sixers have to rely heavily on Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, and the rookie VJ Edgecombe. Maxey is averaging 25.1 points and 6 assists. George is adding 17.4 points on 56.5% from 3, and Edgecombe is contributing 14.8 points and 6.1 rebounds in his first playoff run. But the bigger question isn't about one game or one series. It's about what happens next. And this is where the story of Joel Embiid's health intersects with the financial realities of the NBA. In September of 2024, Embiid waived his player option for a massive 3-year, $192.9 million fully guaranteed extension with the team that drafted him. Embiid is owed a staggering amount over the next 4 seasons: $55.2 million, $59.5 million, $64.3 million, and $69.1 million. All of it guaranteed. Across his 11-year career, Embiid has now become the highest paid Philadelphia 76 ER in franchise history, earning over $320 million. That is a staggering financial weight, and it hangs over every single move the franchise makes. When Embiid was shut down for the 2024-25 season, the talk about his future got really dark. The only way for the Sixers to get cap relief in the years ahead would be if Embiid's knee injuries were officially declared career-ending. The decision on whether Joel Embiid's injury was career-ending would come from a doctor picked by both the NBA and the Players Association. And if that happened, then, starting on February 22nd, 2026, Philly could ask the NBA to wipe Embiid's massive salary from its cap sheet. But the Sixers would also have to waive him. That date, February 22nd, 2026, came and went, and Embiid was right back on the court. He returned for the 2025-26 season, played 38 games, and averaged 26.9 points and 7.7 rebounds, dragging the Sixers back to the playoffs. The medical retirement escape hatch slammed shut, but the brutal reality didn't go anywhere. You see, medical retirements are for when a player is forced to hang it up due to a career-ending injury. The most famous recent case is Chris Bosh, who had to stop playing after dealing with blood clots. The team applies for an exception, and an NBA-approved doctor has to agree that the player can't continue. If it's approved, the team gets the cap relief, but the player still gets his guaranteed money. The fact that this was even a whisper around a 31-year-old former MVP tells you everything you need to know about this mess. Since being drafted by the Philadelphia 76ers way back in 2014, Joel Embiid's story has been a story of injuries. He sat out his first 2 years and played just 31 games in his third season. He has never played 70-plus games and has only cracked 60-plus games 4 times. At this point, anything Embiid gives them for the next 3 years on his deal has to be seen as a bonus. Honestly, any Sixers playoff run should be seen as a bonus too. This season was always about trying to figure out the franchise's future and how to build a winning team that isn't centered on Joel Embiid. We can all pretty safely bet that Embiid will play fewer than 50 regular season games a year for the rest of his time in the league. So it only makes sense to operate as if Embiid isn't even part of the equation anymore. The cold, hard truth is that the Sixers are on shaky ground for as long as Embiid is trying to gut his way through 2 months of high-level postseason basketball. And that's a truth that will likely define the rest of his career. And now, here's the final crushing reality. Embiid has only been 100% healthy for 1 playoff run. That was in the 2020 bubble, when the Sixers got swept by the Celtics in round 1. The only other time he played in every playoff game was in 2024, when he was battling a torn meniscus and Bell's palsy during their first-round loss to the Knicks. Joel Embiid is one of the most talented basketball players to ever grace a court. He put up 70 points with 18 rebounds and 5 assists in 1 game, smashing the Sixers franchise record held by Wilt Chamberlain and becoming just the 9th player in league history to score 70 or more. He's the only player ever to have at least 70 points, 15 boards, and 5 assists in a game. He was named the NBA's most valuable player in 2023. He won a gold medal with Team USA in 2024. But the human body has its own set of rules. And those rules don't care one bit about talent or contracts or the desperate hopes of a city and its fans. ESPN's Lisa Salters reported that Embiid is considered day-to-day. Day-to-day, that phrase has basically been Joel Embiid's career status for a decade. The question is no longer about whether the Sixers can win a title with Embiid. The question now is whether his body will ever give them a chance to find out. We should let the unlikeliness of a championship with Embiid force us to appreciate the great moments he does give us from now on. Because every game he plays from here feels borrowed. Every comeback feels like it might be his last. And the discussion about the 76ers moving on from Joel Embiid, be it a trade, a medical retirement, filing, or just the slow, painful realization that his body can't do it, is not a conversation for the future anymore. It's a conversation for right now.